Are you trying to find meaningful work or are you trying to get your business to the next level? Have you looked at or do you have advisors, mentors, business advisors, whatever it is? I want to go in depth today. I want to share a case study with you. For the first time, I tried going deeper with a client in terms of advisory. We've had this particular client runs or is a major executive with a multinational company, and I would say 99% of the people on the planet would recognize the company. So it's a major multinational company. And this is the second time she's worked for this company. She quit the first time because the culture wasn't right. She was not happy. And that time we spoke about, if you quit, what's your lifestyle going to be like? Who are you going to work for? And she had a number of job opportunities. She had a number of job offers from a couple of startups and another multinational. She decided to go with the startup. The startup didn't make it. Now she's back on the street, and she tried working for another company, another startup who had been in the industry for a while, and that didn't work out. The culture wasn't there. And what I tried to convince her was that there's a huge difference between working in culture, and this multinational company obviously has a great culture. It's a recognizable name, great name. She has a humongous salary. So she quit the first time, went worked for a couple of startups, and decided, after 2 years or so, she wasn't happy, and she wanted to make the decision to go back to the original multinational. And we had the conversation and what's different from the first time, and so on. And she convinced herself that going back was the right thing to do. And I said, okay, let's do that, but let's set an agenda. Within 12 months, we're re-examining the situation and we're reevaluating to see if you're happy. Instead of 12 months, now it's 24 months, and she's clearly miserable. I'm not going to say hates it, but she hates her time at work. So I said, okay, we need to do an in-depth analysis. You're going to rent a cottage and we're going to spend a weekend together. And she thought, well, that's a major expense, and me flying in and spending the weekend and so on. She wasn't sure that it was cost efficient. So anyways, we spent the whole weekend together, and we didn't really focus on spending like 12 hours a day talking about it. But we did go for walks, we sat on the dock, we did a number of different things, and occasionally we brought it up when it felt right. I didn't want to be overbearing like I usually am. So, and on one of our walks through a forest, through a nature preserve, I guess you'd call it, we started talking about, what makes you happy? And I've asked her this question so many times. I always ask clients, what makes you happy? And it's surprising how many of them can't answer that question, which is really frustrating for me, and it's frustrating for them. So we talked about it again, and the reason why I felt it was necessary to do this weekend again is because she is clearly unhappy. She wants to leave. She has a couple of job offers again. So we're 360. We're back to where we were 2 years ago. And she's about to make the exact same mistake. And how do we get that message across? And she's spoken, I've connected with her with other business advisors. She's talked to other business colleagues, and everyone, 100% of the people she's talked to says this is not the right time to leave. If she has a major salary, she is unhappy, and so on. So everyone is telling her not to leave. Now is not the right time to be experimenting, especially in the middle of this virus thing. And slowly we're reaching her. And one of the things that I was quite upset with her, and this is one of the things one of the reasons why I insisted on having this in-depth analysis, was that even though we have been communicating for 4 years now and with weekly calls and so on, I found something, Chris Voss would call it a black swan. I found something that I had never heard of before, that she's actually in an advisory role for her position. And I should stipulate, one of the reasons she wants to leave is that even though she's in charge of major accounts, major multi-billion-dollar accounts worldwide, she her time is spent doing a lot of menial tasks. And she has a number of assistants, and we've talked about, delegating the work to the assistants, but the assistants are not really her designated assistants. They're department assistants, and they close cases prematurely. And I thought, well, why is that the case? Well, they get rewarded for closing cases. They get recognized for the number of cases they close. Well, why not redesign that program so they get 1 point for closing a case, and they lose 2 points or 5 points for closing a case prematurely? That would redesign how they're rewarded, and they want to make sure that should the client closing the case first, or it should be the department head closing the case. It should not be the person who is actively working on solving that particular problem closing the case, because they're too involved in closing cases. They get reward for closing cases. So there's a problem with that. And I said, well, why don't we just change that? Well, she's tried it and it didn't work. The company was not receptive. They play a lot of lip service to what she does. But I said, wait a minute, don't you represent your whole department head? You were recognized and you represent them. You were asked to represent them. Why are you not taking this forward? Why are you not using stronger language? Why are you not saying this is unacceptable? This has to be changed today. The reward system, here's a new reward system and so on. So she clearly saw that I was upset that she hadn't told me this before. And her explanation was that she didn't really see it for the value that it represents. So if you're unhappy about your job and you want to leave, yet the major corporation recognized you as a leader to represent your department, so you can change the culture, you can change the system, you can change policy, you can change everything that you hate about your job. Why haven't you used it? Right? And she's had an awakening. And when we brought in other colleagues, other people that she sees as trusted advisors as well, who mirror the same thing, yeah, instead of leaving, fix it or redesign your position so you're happy to stay. I mean, our work lives, she's a workaholic. She spends nearly 50% of her day at work. And if she's not at work, she's thinking about work or complaining about work or complaining about clients or complaining about different things. I mean, these multi-billion-dollar clients, the majority of them, 70% of her clients are dead wood, are dead weight. And I said, get rid of them. Downgrade them, send them to, account recovery or whatever other department there is. Because if you're in a headhunting, not a headhunting role, but if you're in the hunting role, if you're looking to take clients from here to here, and you can't do that with this dead weight clients, get rid of them, get some new clients that you can improve, who are looking to improve their status. And again, she tried to do that, but superficially. I find that I think there's a reason why there's only, 2 or 3 or 10% of female major CEOs, because they don't speak up. They don't see their own worth. They don't see their own value. They don't see the contribution, the major contribution they're bringing into a major corporation. I'm just a little cog in a big system. No, you're not. You were designated to speak for your colleagues. You're not a little cog, you're a major cog. If anybody can change your company culture or the way you do business, it's you. You've been targeted. Someone tapped you on the shoulder to do this. She has the credibility. She has the people skills, the leadership skills to do this. This is why they recognized her. And yet she didn't recognize that of herself, which is, I thought, is pretty sad. Right. So when I brought in other colleagues to basically say the same thing, and they recognized, I mean, a huge opportunity that she didn't recognize. So it really made sense. So now after the weekend, she's all excited to getting back to work, and she's calling a meeting of these different department heads to say, hey, here are some things that are unacceptable, right? And they're going to create video, even though they have training videos. Well, the other major thing, the other black swan that we saw is that the company obviously has a great, like a nearly perfect onboarding process, right? But what happens when the onboarding process, when the company is in, they pay major attention to bring in a new company, right? But new companies always have turnovers within their employees, right? So what happens when there's a new employee that has to be onboarded, and that's where the company was failing, and that's where it was causing her major stress. And this is where she felt she was spending 80% of her time dealing with issues that the onboarding process took care of, but now there's a new employee, and this employee doesn't know the system, and she was spending way too much time. So I said, okay, so bring on the onboarding process for one employee. It should not be you, and it should not be your assistants doing this. It should be the system again to retrain the one person. So again, but the onboarding process was a panel of executives, and they were not capturing all this knowledge, all this information to be used over and over and over again. They were not creating videos of this onboarding process. And I said, well, that's all you have to do, just record all this stuff. So the new employee has to watch, 6 or 7 hours worth of videos, and now they're on board, they're at the same level. Now you've eliminated 90% of what you have to do. Now you just take care of what she doesn't understand, and she's up to date, or that employee is up to date. I mean, it's so simple from outside looking in, but when you're in the weeds, when you're running a business, when you're going from job to job to job to job, it's very difficult for you to maintain a helicopter perspective. It's very difficult for you to see what others see clearly because you're so far into the weeds. So I guess the moral of this video is, if you don't have mentors, I have 6 mentors that I deal with on a weekly basis. If you don't have people that can see things that clearly you're blinded with, and those are 2 perfect examples. So if you don't have advisors that spend weekends with you, or look at your financials, or look at your career, and really look at what you do or the way you make decisions, what are the criteria or system that you use to make decisions? If that's flawed, garbage in, garbage out is a computer term that is, relevant in this case. If your decision-making process is flawed and you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, it's time for you to delegate that and bring someone else in who can see what you can't see. So if you're job hunting right now, if you've been in a position where you have been job hunting before, or if you're in the position where you have to redesign your business, or you have, we're going in a new direction. If you're using terms like that, your system is flawed. Find someone to advise you. Have a look at your business or your career. If you don't live by design, you're living by default, which means you're kind of like a rudderless ship in the middle of the ocean, being blown around by tides and winds and different waves. If you don't have a clear path, If you don't know what your 81st birthday looks like in detail, if you can't describe it in detail and in past tense, if you're not using addresses, dogs' names, if you don't have a clear picture where you use numbers, if you don't know how much you have in your bank account when you're 81 years old, then you don't have specific goals. You don't have SMART goals. You don't have ways to measure your goals on a daily basis, which means you're living by default, not by design. So I urge you to get some help. Life is so short. You know, life is so easy. I mean, really easy when you have a good design. Life is so much easier when you're getting helped by people who have done it hundreds of thousands of times. We've helped over 1,000 companies get over $20 million. We don't specialize in executives, but it's still the same design. It's still creating quality of life. It's designing quality of life. I hope this really helps you. Please post your questions, comments below. I would love to help you. Ask for a 30-minute free consultation, but get some help. If I'm not the right guy for you, then find someone else. There's hundreds, thousands of people on LinkedIn. Post your questions, comments below. Hope to speak with you soon. Thank you.